Right, moving right along with our numeracy. So this time our goal is I can use decimals and percents to solve word problems. Now, if you notice, I have in our title applications for fractions, percents, and decimals. In most cases, the fraction part, um, I don't spend too much, actually, any examples dealing with that. Mainly, it's the percents and the decimals that we're working with because those are converting a little bit easier together. Okay, so what we're going to do is, in order to do these questions, is we're actually going to be working on examples together. And the first example that you have in front of you is a magazine. Okay, so we have, and I'm just going to bring it down because we're looking at part A, and I'm going to bring it down just before part B starts. So a magazine sells for $12 this year. Last year, it sold for $9. Okay, so we had $9 and now it's selling for $12. So the question is they want us to determine the percent increase over last year's price. Okay, so the percent of increase. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is, well, what is the dollar amount of that increase? And that's a little bit easier to find, right? Because what we would do is the dollar amount of the increase is going to be the new price, which was the $12, and we're subtracting our $9. And for some reason, I'm missing a little sign there. So, and of course it's locked. So I'm going to unlock it and just actually put our minus sign there. That makes more sense. So we're actually going $12 minus $9. So it actually went up $3. So that's the increase in the price. Now they're asking for the percent of increase over last year's price. And if you translate that English, so increase over last year's price. So over, you're setting it up like a fraction in a sense. So you literally are going and putting the increase on the top over last year's price, okay, which was the original price. So when we do that, we can actually figure out the numbers. The increase was $3 because we calculated it, and the original price was $9. Now, when we divide these numbers, we end up having decimal 3 repeated. Now, that's not the percent. Okay, so remember when we were converting between decimals and percent, what we did, if you look back in your notes, if you so want to, is you need to take this number and multiply it by 100. When I take it and multiply it by 100, now remember, that is a repeating sign. So if I take this and, just in case you can't do it in your head, that's like decimal 3333333 forever and ever times 100, and we end up with 33.3 repeating percent. Okay, so percent, we're going to leave it to one decimal place, so that's what we're going to write down. We're going to write down 33.3%. Okay, now because it's a word question, the other thing that's expected that you would show is a therefore statement, and you're used to doing that. So therefore, the percent increase was 33.3%. Okay, so everything that you're seeing here in green is what you would be expected to see in a solution. Now let's take a look at part B. Part B says this time the percent of the old price compared to the new price. So we're comparing the old price to the new price. So the old price to the new price. Okay, so again, old price to new price. Well, the old price was $9. The new price is $12. And again, just like we did with our last question, we're going to divide these, take in order to make it into a decimal, which would be 0.75. And just to show you, I'll bring up the calculator. Okay, so it's not that we're doing this in our head. So 9 divided by 12 equals decimal 75. Now I need to change the decimal into a percent, and to do that, I would multiply by 100. Oops. And we end up with 75%. So that would be our next equals 75%. And just like the previous question, I have to put a therefore statement. So my therefore statement is going to be, therefore, the percent of the old price to the new price is 75%. Okay, so let's look at the next question. Now notice I have these thinking kind of things, because sometimes what happens is we do a lot of thinking and we don't write it down. But in order for you to understand what a mathematics person thinks, that's why I have these little thought bubbles. So this time we have Caitlin. She purchased a magazine subscription for $322.08 after 12% tax was included. Notice it's not 13%, it's 12% tax was included. Okay, if each magazine was $45.99 before taxes, determine how many months she subscribed. And the thing is, we're only getting one magazine is produced per month. Okay, just so that we're clarified with that. So again, there's more than one way to do a lot of these questions, but what is my brain thinking? Well, first of all, my brain's thinking this 322 and 8 cents. That is the cost of the magazine plus the tax. I also know that one magazine equals $3.99 plus tax. Okay, so as I said, there's more than one way to do it. So I'm thinking in my head that if I actually figure out how much one magazine is plus tax, then that might be even easier than trying to use the 322 to start with. So I know that one magazine, the cost of it is going to be $5.99 plus tax. I'm told that the tax is 12%. So that's the next thing I'm going to deal with. So the one magazine is going to be the $5.99 plus 12% of the $5.99. Now I need to calculate 12% of $5.99. Now if you remember how you do that, so I'm going to bring up my calculator again. And what we need to do is we need to go decimal 12 times the 5.99. So let's write that down. So that's 5.99 plus decimal 12 times the 5.99. So if we bring up our calculator, decimal 12 times 5.99, we end up with decimal 7188. Now because we're dealing with money, I need it to two decimal places. So decimal 71, this 8 is going to make the 1 go to a 2. So 72 cents. So that's my next line in my solution. So it's going to be $5.99 plus 72 cents. If I add these two numbers together, then what I end up having is $6.71. So what I found here is this is the total for one magazine. So now if I take the total money, which was the $322.08, and divide it by one magazine, that should tell me how many magazines I actually have purchased. Caitlin's actually purchased. So let's try that. So we're going to find out the number of magazines. So the number of magazines, and I just use mag for short, is the 322 $322.08. I'm going to divide it by how much one magazine costs with tax, which is the $6.71. Now again, I bring up my calculator. So 322.08 divided by 671, and we end up with 48. So just like the other word questions, I also have to put a therefore statement, and it's somewhere here. She subscribed the magazine for 48 months. All right. Now we still have one more question to do. However, I'm going to make it a part B of the 1.5, just so that we don't run out of time.